Chris Hadfield speak. For those of you who don't know who that is, he was the first Canadian astronaut to walk in space. He described to us what happens to the human body when gravity is taken away. So your eyes get smaller, the blood volume goes down, your heart actually changes in size and in shape. The calluses on the bottom of your feet fall off, and your foot actually feels like a newborn baby's again. And of course, we float. Why would I tell you this? Because isn't it crazy how if you change just one thing, you change everything? If you change just one thing in your life, you might change everything. My name is Janelle, and I'm honored to introduce your speaker for this morning's breakfast. This tall drink of water beside me, this is my husband, Tyson Lazaruk. Tyson is a friend, a son, a brother, a husband, and basically a celebrity to our two boys when he walks through that front door after work. If you ask him, he'd say he's hilarious. I would say, other than his escalator impression, he's mildly funny. This presentation is about change, and Tyson is a living example of change. This year, he's made monumental changes in his life. He quit his job, became an Uber driver, a stay-at-home dad, and a handyman for the summer, which also all added to a level higher of swearing coming from him. Not exactly the summer of George, as some might say. Tyson is a leader, and that's one of the things I love about him. He's no longer as scared to change, and has started to actually welcome it. Tyson has recently been accepted to do his master's program in Melbourne, Australia. And we will move our family there this February to do that. Something you may not know about Tyson is that he is deeply touched that all of you took the time to come out here this morning. He has a huge heart, and he loves helping others, whether that be in what he says or what he does, which is obvious in the many, many volunteer positions he holds, some of which I'm sure he hasn't even told me about. And remember, if you take just one thing you hear this morning and change something in your life, you may change everything. Please help me welcome our guest speaker today, Tyson Lazaruk.
Oh, there's a good chance that that introduction will be the best thing that you hear today. So, that was very good. Thank you very much. Thank you sincerely for being here today. Thank you to the committee for inviting me to speak. Today's presentation, the theme is, what would you say to yourself if you had a conversation with yourself at age 18? So me now at age 37, what would that conversation be like with 18-year-old Tyson? What would I want him to know? Obviously, I don't want to give him stock tips, tell him to make friends with Mark Zuckerberg and all sorts of other things like that. But the big concepts. What are the big things that I'd really want him to know? So this presentation will touch on 4 big ideas that I want 18-year-old Tyson to know. I hope you all can, hopefully, as Janelle mentioned, take one thing away from today's conversation. I hope it inspires you to have a conversation with your 18-year-old self. The presentation is designed in a way that I think 18-year-old Tyson would really appreciate. So it's a little bit different, but I hope you enjoy. Before I begin, I just want to touch on really quickly where the inspiration came from this. The Players Tribune is a really cool sports media website. It started in 2014. Their aim was to give voice to current athletes, to be able to talk about the issues that they face. And so the Players Tribune started this series called Letter to Your Younger Self, where athletes could actually write a letter to their younger selves, what it would be like being in pro sports and all that kind of stuff. And so I had seen this a few times. I thought this would be a really cool idea. What would that be like? What would you want to say to your 18-year-old self? So that's where I got this idea from. Now, any retrospective look back in time would not be sufficient if we didn't include at least one photo. So let's go back and take a look. Obviously, this is not me at 18. This is purely put in here to win favor with the audience. No other reason than to stick it in here and hope that you say "aw" and warm you up for what's going to happen next, okay? Let's actually take a look at 18-year-old Tyson. Tyson, good to see you, bud. All right, our time here is short, so we'll spend about 20-25 minutes here. Tyson, I want to tell you the four main things that I want you to know in a way that I think you'll really appreciate it. So let's dive in. This is the next computer. This was a company that was started in the mid-1980s, and it was started to rival Microsoft and Apple. The company right away started to struggle. They had grand ambitions, but they failed to, for many years in a row, to come up with this grand design of a computer that would revolutionize the world, not only personally, but also in businesses. They started pretty aggressively. They spent $10,000 in the mid-1980s on this, a logo. $10,000 mid-1980s, and they got this. After years and years of struggling to develop this machine and everything that they wanted it to be, finally in 1989, it was launched at a large media event. It cost $100 to attend the media event. People came, said it was a great computer, but the problem was the price tag, which was $6,500 per machine, is what it cost. In 1989, $6,500 to put this in your business or in your home. It was a failure. It didn't sell, obviously. Many years went by, they struggled, they continued to struggle, they could never break into the home computing market, and they stopped manufacturing PCs. Now, who was the leader that led this company, that led this horrible pursuit towards something that wasted a lot of money? The owner put his own money into it. It was this guy. He may not look familiar, but if we age him a little bit, he might look more familiar. It was Steve Jobs. If you're unsure who Steve Jobs is, he'd go on to lead this company to being the first $1 trillion valuation company in the world. And he would revolutionize communication and computing, change everything. This was his company. He was actually kicked out of his company, started next, failed, and then came back to Apple and did the great things he did. Why do I bring this up? Because Tyson, you cannot be afraid to fail. You have to be courageous. You have to charge in there. You, like most, are afraid of failure. Maybe even more so. You're afraid of failing. You can't be. The great thing about Steve Jobs is not that he designed the iPhone. It's that he failed over and over again, and he continued to come back and try to do great things. Tyson, you will never understand the true greatness that you can be until you step into areas where you might fail, and you might fail publicly. You need to chase failure, Tyson. It's important. You will never understand how good you can be until you chase failure. Lesson number 2. This is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was number 23 for the Chicago Bulls. He was arguably the best basketball player to ever play the game of basketball. Even people that don't like or don't know anything about basketball likely have heard Michael Jordan. This picture was taken in 1986. This was a playoff game against the Boston Celtics. In this game, Michael scored 63 points, which today is still the record for most points scored in a playoff game. The thing is, though, I'm actually not going to talk about Michael Jordan. I'm going to talk about this guy. This is number 20. His name is Eugene Banks. He's a very average at best basketball player. Eugene grew up on the East Coast. He went to Duke University, a very good basketball school, played 6 years in the NBA, again, a very average player. Eugene had a problem that many basketball players who played with Michael Jordan had. You see, basketball players are trained that if someone makes an aggressive move to the basketball hoop, you as his teammate follow him. You find an open spot, you try to cut to the lane, you try to help him out in case he needs to pass. The problem that Eugene had is that Michael Jordan was so good, he was so great, that coaches would scream and yell because people on his team would just watch. They would forget their natural basketball instinct and they would just watch him. So as Michael did these amazing things on the basketball court, when his teammates need to do something, they wouldn't. They would be so inspired by how good he was that they would just watch and admire. I think there's a metaphor in this, Tyson, specifically for you. I think that you're going to be very lucky in the next 20 years. You're going to meet great people. You're going to hear great things. You have great coworkers. You have great family members. You have greatness all around you. But it is wasted unless you use that to inspire action in yourself. I think we as a society are so good at recognizing greatness, and we put people on pedestals, and we appreciate, and we admire, and we do all of these great things, but we forget the most important part, that it needs to inspire us to action. We can't be Eugene Banks. If Michael Jordan does something great and we see it, we also need to aspire to do something great. Let greatness inspire you, and let greatness inspire action, Tyson. Lesson number 3. This is Jason Strudwick. It was actually never designed to have all these sports references in it. In fact, we're in a sports bar is a bit all strange, but we'll dive back into it. This is Jason Strudwick. Jason Strudwick played hockey. He was a defenseman. He played for 15 years. And Tyson, you'll have a really unique and rare opportunity later on in life to actually work with professional athletes. And you'll work with Jason Strudwick. And there'll be one particular incident that you will remember, and you will remember it well. Jason got invited to go to a grade 4 class to go play floor hockey, and because he's a great guy, he said yes. So you go with Jason, you go to this grade 4 class, and they're playing floor hockey, and the kids are really excited, they're having fun, they're enjoying themselves, and at the urging of the teachers, the kids are so excited that they invite Jason to the ice cream party that they're having after this hockey game. Jason, surprisingly, declines. And he cites the fact that he has a game the next day, that he can't eat ice cream the day before the hockey game. And this interaction will stick with you for a long time, because it's interesting. He's a very average defenseman in many ways, but he's a pro hockey player who views his body like a machine. And he's very specific with what he puts in that machine. He takes very good care of it. And he's always trying to maximize his potential on the ice. So the lesson in this, Tyson, is what if you treated your body and your mind in life like Jason Strudwick treated his body on the ice? If you wanted to maximize your relationships, if you wanted to maximize the way that your brain works, if you wanted to maximize everything about what you do in life, would you sleep 5 hours a night? Would you drink 2 liters of coffee? I think it's a really interesting idea what Jason was doing. Again, he was treating his body like a machine, and he was trying to optimize performance of that machine. And I think that you should consider this, Tyson. I think you need to take care of yourself better. I think that you take some, you're a few years away from 5 hours of sleep and 2 liters of coffee a day. And I think you take some pride in the fact that you don't need a lot of sleep, that you can operate on 5 or 6 hours sleep. That's not a problem. But I think you're thinking of it wrong. I think what you're telling people is actually that you're okay with operating at 65% of your capacity. Maximize your potential. This is Kathy Irene Lilico. This is her in her early 20s. In the summer of 1980, she would marry a man named Darcy Dean Lazaruk, and they would give birth to their first child, a boy, Tyson Alexander Lazaruk. Shortly after, she would divorce. She would remarry again. She would divorce again. Tyson, I know, looking at this picture, the feelings that you feel right now. I know the anger you feel. I know the difficulty that you have looking at this. I know the frustration. And maybe most importantly, I know the embarrassment that you feel. And I've got bad news. It's going to get worse. It's going to get way worse. You're going to spend many years not talking to this woman. If you listen to nothing today, Tyson, you need to listen to this. At this point in your life, you are just starting now to ball up those feelings and shove them down deep and believe that if you ignore them, that they will have no effect in your life. And I'm here to tell you you're wrong. It will. It will come out in ways that you don't want it to come out. It will affect your relationships. It will affect your job. It will affect the way that you feel about yourself. And there's only one way that you can take care of this, and it's to actually deal with it and face it. I think there's two specific things that you need to consider here, and I know they're hard to hear at this point. Number one, you need to forgive, which I can imagine at this point in your life is really tough. But you need to come around to this idea. Forgiveness is the only way that it'll work. True forgiveness. Forgive everything. True forgiveness. And number two, you need to talk about it. You need to get it out. You need to release it. There's no other way. And know that by standing up and talking about it, you will allow other people to also talk about the things that they struggle with. Take pride in that. And if I could tell you one more thing that you really don't want to hear right now, I know that you like perfection, and I know that that's how you evaluate yourself on a daily basis. But understand that there is no perfection in parenting. Parenting is so hard, so hard. You're always making decisions where you don't have enough information, you're not in the right mindset, and then worse is you evaluate yourself after, know that you didn't make a good decision, and you just have to go on the next day and try to do better. And you do that every day. Your parents tried their very best, and they lived with knowing that they didn't do a perfect job, but they did their best, just like you're going to do your best too. Okay, deep breath, everybody. Whew. Heavy. Is that all I would say to you, Tyson, now? All of it? No, obviously not. I've got a few more things I'm going to ram in there. Number one, you will live many years in embarrassment of this photo right here. You don't want people to see it. You don't really like it coming out. But I want you to reframe the way that you look at this picture. You look fucking good, bud. You look good. There is not a lot of grade 4 kids that can rock spiky hair, a shirt, opened up that deep on your tiny little chest. You are a trendsetter, buddy. This is an example of it. You always have been, always will be. You look good, bud. You're 18. Small criticism, you're going real heavy on the dippity-doo. A lot of dippity-doo is being used at age 18. Let's be honest, we could probably cut it back just a little bit. You're going real heavy on the dippity-doo. So just small criticism, think about just a little less dippity-doo. You know what, actually, reconsidering that, how about we just get rid of the dippity-doo? How about we spend a little bit more than $2 on hair product? Try something different. Let's throw all the dippity-doo out. That would be wise. And lastly, I can't tell you too much, but many years from now, this guy, you don't even know him right now, named Gavin, he's going to set you up with a girl named Janelle. Please, whatever you do, please text her first, because if you don't, you will hear about it for the rest of your life. So just text her first. Be the first one. Get it over with. All right, buddy, my time is up. What I want you to know is that I remember how tough it is to be 18. I think everyone does. Those are really tough years. You worry what people think, you worry about how you look, you're confused, there's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And it's a really difficult age. And if I could tell you anything, Tyson, I would tell you that it gets better. It gets way better. All of the work that you put in, all of the tears that you cry, all of the struggle that you feel, it will get better, way better. I promise you. Because one day, if you keep fighting through, one day, you will get to be a part of something so beautiful. And it's going to look like this. And it's from that you will get to hear something so special and so powerful that it will make you do incredible things. And it'll sound like this. Let's try one more time. Technical glitch. Let's pretend like what's supposed to happen. It's my son saying, I love you, Daddy. I love you so much. Tyson, this has been fun. Love yourself, bud, because your family sure does. Thank you, everyone, so much for being here today. Thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. Have a good Saturday. Thank you.
I'd say this room is moved.